What up, folks? Dave here, and I like knives. Here to talk to you today about the Kershaw Shuffle. This is a knife from Kershaw that they've been carrying for several years now. One of their models that people don't talk about quite as much, but it's still definitely one of their better budget options in my personal opinion. Although budget being about $15 to $20 in most places, although that does come with some definite budget hangups. So a great design made on a budget. Still a great design though, and we'll get into that. But first, let's run some size comparisons. As said, this knife has a lot of features. It's also got a couple of bugs, so let's get into it. One of the main features and one of the driving points of this knife is the literal features. Anytime that you hear somebody talk about it, they're gonna talk about the bottle cap opener. They're gonna talk about the screwdriver as though any vaguely flattened piece of metal counts as a screwdriver. I don't see it, whatevs. Counts for a pretty solid lanyard hole though, so we'll go with it. The bottle cap opener, I don't care anything about, since, well, literally everything in the world has a bottle cap opener on it. So that's not a huge deal for me, but hey, they did it. And it makes for a steel backspacer with a little bit of jimping, so it's not all bad, certainly. Catches on your pocket a little bit, just something to pay attention to, especially depending on how you carry it. Speaking of carry, this also comes with one of my favorite of Kershaw's pocket clips. It's the typical just fold over style, so it is very deep carry, and the screws, even though they are not the flat top, which is incorrect. If they're not the flat top, that's incorrect. It's not an opinion thing, they're just incorrect. But even though they are not that style, it still provides enough space that you can get your pocket in and out, so it's not a big deal. And even though it looks very heavily textured with all the K's around the place, including here under the pocket clip, it's not that big a deal because the K's are not particularly deep, and they're very broad in design. You can see them especially right there. So what that in function does is provides more than enough grip, especially with their ergonomics in general, which we'll come back to. So once this is in your hand, it's not coming out. When it's in your pocket, it's not going to slide around. A lot of knives that I have with perfectly smooth backs, they can slide around a little bit because there's no texture holding them in the pocket. This, it's not enough texture to eat your pocket, but it is enough to hold it, which I greatly like. One of the other things is with the grind on the blade. Now this is a decently high hollow grind on fairly thin blade stock, so what that does is makes it nice and slicey. Not the most perfect thing in the world, not going to be a Kershaw leak, for example, but it is decently slicey, more than a lot of other stuff. And gave you a nice sharpening tool right there, which I am a huge fan of. That way you don't get any kind of beard or anything like that. Going back to the handles for a second, you can see right there on either side of the blade, those two silvery bits. Along with that backspacer, this is full steel liners. So what that means is that, although don't use anything as a pry bar, this is a heavy duty, pretty well built kind of thing. So if you are in a project situation, you're cutting through cardboard, whatever it is, you are able to put a little bit of torque on this, put a little pressure on this that you would not be able to do in a less heavily built design, for instance. I don't have any on hand because I don't like thinly built designs. This one's not heavy, but it is not tanky, I should say, but it is decent in that way. One of the other little things that I like, because one of the not a huge fan of liner locks in general because in a lot of cases they can be pretty hard to get your thumb into that. What this goes ahead and does is gives you a little cutout right there. So you can see right there, perfectly straight on, you can still see the silver from the lock bar. That's just cutting it out and giving you a little bit of extra access. Along with that smoothed out area there, a little bit of ramp. There's not a question. This completely avoids the reasons why I don't like a lot of liner locks. And I love that. Size-wise, this is absolutely perfect. You saw its comparisons earlier. So you know exactly where it stands up in that way. And this is, I mean, it's going to be legal. It's going to be carryable. It's not going to be threatening to anybody if you pull it out in the, in the lunchroom or anything like that. Absolutely great size. I typically go for knives that are much bigger. But if those are environments that you need to be aware of, this is a solid option for you in that way. And going back to the features, with the bottle cap, the whatever, it's kind of just one more in Kershaw's long line of, as seen earlier, Kershaw's long line of dedication to multi-purpose tools. This is my I don't care anything about the knife on this. This is my go-to bottle opener. I don't really care anything about the blade on this. This is a pretty solid screwdriver. It's just one of those things that Kershaw does that I really like. It's just part of their company's specific kind of innovation. Every company focuses on a little bit different thing. That's one of the things that tends to be somewhat uniquely Kershaw, which I very much appreciate. Not all uniquely Kershaw, obviously, but somewhat uniquely Kershaw, which I appreciate. Now, kind of the biggest thing here, and the most important for me, is absolutely, you see those slots right there, you know where your fingers are gonna go. This is so comfortable. It locks your hand in, and maybe it's just because I wear medium-sized gloves. Maybe it's just because of the size and the particular shape of my hand, completely open to that. But on my personal body, this is amazing. Like, you're talking about, where'd it go? Like, you're talking about paramilitary 2 ergonomics for me. If you don't like the PM2, you might not end up liking this. Although, because it is significantly thinner, that might not be an issue. I don't know, that's just what the ergonomics remind me of, especially because of this forward finger choil. I love that finger choil. Lets you get right up close to it, and you can do whatever you need to. That's a lot of features, including some of my favorite aspects, but as I said, there are some bugs here, and one of the biggest ones is that right there. That pocket clip is directly in line of the slicing path, which it doesn't need to be. It doesn't have to be there, which makes it that's a design flaw. I'll go ahead and call it. That is an absolute, that's not an opinion thing, that's a design flaw. Because the reason that thumb stud is here, and what I mean by that is as you're cutting through material here on the heel of the blade, you're going up. If you're going through an apple or going through cheese or something like that, you're hitting the thumb stud and suddenly you can't cut anymore. You gotta adjust, you gotta do whatever. On this small of a blade, there's not a whole lot of other places to adjust to. I mean, if you take out that much of the blade, what is that? That's not half, but that's a third of the blade. That's not usable on large material, foam, that kind of thing, because of that thumb stud placement. And it's perfectly unnecessary. The reason that it's there is so that you can get around that point right there. However, you can see that it's already pretty far away from that point, and when the blade is closed, that point is above the blade. Both of those are incorrect. So what you could have done, Mr. Kershaw, is shave that down a little bit, move the thumb stud in a little bit, and get it out of that darn slicing path. What you could have done is put the thumb stud right there, and right there it's out of the way. Right there it's gold mine. But you didn't, and that's very upsetting. Seems short-sighted, but nah. Another big thing is the screws here, and this will only be a real problem if you take it down. If you like disassembling knives, I like unscrewing things, so such is my curse. These are one-sided screws. They go into that backing right there, so they just screw into that collar. Instead of being set screws that are uneven on one side so that, you can turn here, or, I mean, even worse than this are the kind of screws that you have to hold the screwdriver on the one side while turning the other. That kind, again, that's incorrect. This is better than that, I guess, but it still limits you on how much torque you can put on the screw, because eventually, I mean, it's just going to be turning that, right? That's, again, I'm not going to call that a design flaw like I did the thumb studs, because in effect what that does is keeps you from over-torquing the screw. It's a trade-off, not my preferred style. It is what it is. Teflon washers, and this really ties into my next bit, but Teflon washers are not heavy duty, they're not long lasting. In here, instead of going with the phosphor bronze washers, like in a lot of your other knives, especially higher end knives, they went Teflon, which is part of why it is $20. Once you get, $25, $30, Teflon washers become completely unacceptable in my mind. When you're still on the $20 mark, and some of these even sell for 10 or 11 or 12. But when you're in that price range, I mean, fair enough. You gotta hit that price mark. 8CR13 MOV blade steel. It's not good, but at least it's not, whatever mystery steel some other companies make for the same price. So that's just a trade-off there. A lot of these are just trade-offs because of the budget nature of the model. Here's the twist, though. It doesn't have to be this way. With the Kershaw Shuffle, there are what feel like a half dozen variants, all kinds of colorways. There's a Shuffle 2, which gives it tip down only, a little bit different bottle cap opener. Tanto. There's a Kershaw DIY, which trades in your pry bar and bottle opener for a 1/4 inch screwdriver bit driver. All cool. My question is why, if this is so well selling enough to demand a dozen different colorways, why does it not have a ZT model? Maybe not ZT specific, maybe not zero tolerance specifically. Zero tolerance being basically Kershaw's nice brand. But Kershaw is still, in and of itself, capable of doing some incredible work. Bare knuckle here, 20 CV, still under $100, absolutely insane. Why does the Kershaw not have, if this one's $20, fine. Why does the Kershaw not also have a $50 variant? You make this D2, make this micarta, that kind of changed the thumb stud. Even the Pilar got a D2 version the next year. And that, in my opinion, falls under kind of a similar use category as this. That one's obviously CRKT property. That really is what I want most for this knife, is a nicer version of it. This is great. This is fantastic. This is an incredible design. And if you are on a budget, it is a great place for you. If you just want an extra beater knife that you can throw around and not have to particularly care about, because it's $15. You can buy another one if you lose this in the ocean or something. This is a great one for you. This is where I started for a really long time. I carried shuffles. I've got a handful around the house. They're great knives. Biggest letdown for me, though, is that they never have done, and I hope they do at some point before discontinuing it, but they've yet to do something exciting with it, something truly exciting. Shuffle 2 was cool when it came out. I've never handled one, so I can't speak to it confidently. But in truth, that's what I want most for this knife, is a ZT or a higher end model. Although as is, with that understanding, this is a solid piece, and if that's what you're looking for, I think this is going to serve you just fine. If you've got any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know down below. And other than that, have a great day.